My name is Al-Obaidi. I'm professor of communication and also the academic director of global programs at the Munich Institute for Global Engagement at Bridgewater State University. This is a special event and is sponsored by many programs from MENA to the Asian and also, most importantly, from the State Department or Department of Education in Washington, D.C. We are trying to use these events to really do two things. One, to bridge the cultures out of the politics, and also to use all kinds of languages to connect us, because language is very, very important. And the importance of language cannot be really tested unless we be the carrier, who we can test the language and put it to use. And our speaker today is well known. I mean, I need 30 minutes just to brief what his long, rich CV. However, Dr. Fawwaz Al-Abdulhaq is at least the last three positions he held. Was the vice president for Yarmouk University and the vice president for TTU, and now he is the president of the Hashemite University, which we're looking forward to have actually official partnership with the university. And also, most importantly, he's really close friend to Bridgewater State University, starting from our president and to us regular faculty. He's always with us in mind and heart, and also in word. He's a man of his word. When he says something, deliver on that something. So we appreciate that. And for me, I'm proud to call him my dear friend. I would like also to thank my friend Laura, so she introduced herself, and also our assistant provost, Dr. Mankaito. Some of you met when we visited Jordan 2 years ago. And my office and the support, Susan Williams, our graduate students, they really work hard to publicize this. And all of you, my friends, colleagues, in the word of our president, President Fred Clark, Bridgewater State University is your campus. Or as he said exactly, our campus is your campus. And the floor now to Dr. Fawwaz Al-Abdulhaq, please.
Well, thank you, my dearest friend, Professor Jabbar. And before I move to my talk, I would like to thank you from the bottom of my heart and also wish you all the best. And I do believe in God that will give you the power and the strength, not only bringing people together, bringing languages, cultures, universities together. This is your genuine habit, Professor Jabbar, and I will never ever forget your efforts in bringing connections with us at Yarmouk University, with TTU, with all people in general. So thank you indeed. I would like to convey my greeting to your president, the loveliest president I ever met, a friend, a brother, an educationist, and also to Laura, to all the people at Bridge State University who came to us at TTU and also at Yarmouk University. I still remember we held a conference together between Bridgewater State University and Tafila Technical, and a group of people visited Tafila, and I still remember the great conference held there by your own hands. Also, I'd like to thank the audience who I'm really very honored and pleased to have people from Jordan, from Iraq, from Iran, from Lebanon, from everywhere I can see. Also, my friends in the field of linguistics and English language, my students are there. Thank you indeed, and I wish I could live up to your expectation. Being an administrator and being an educationist and being a language planner and engineer, I wish I could offer something up to the title, which is bringing languages and cultures together. Let me start from the scratch to familiarize my audience with what is language planning. Language planning has been given so many terms: language policy, language engineering, language cultivation, language treatment, language revival, language modernization, policy of developing rigid programs for teaching and learning languages in general. And we have so many dozens of definitions for language planning, but the most comprehensive definition given to language planning is summarized by Robert Cooper in his book, Language Planning. Deliberate efforts, deliberate, and I underline the word deliberate, something which is intentional, something which is well done and well planned. And we are talking about efforts that can be exerted and seen. Deliberate efforts done to serve three functions in language planning. Number one, the status of language in general, the position, the roles played by languages, and second, language acquisition and language teaching and language learning, how language is taught. And also we talk about the significance of introducing language as vehicles and carriers of culture and transfer of knowledge. So this is the most comprehensive definition of language that is concerned with languages, with people, with efforts to improve three things regarding language. Any language, be it English, be it Arabic, be it whatever, even we're talking about dialects, and also that is, we care about the corpus of the language itself. And when we talk about the corpus, we talk about the body of the language itself, starting from phonetics, phonology, morphology, syntax, semantics, discourse, word coinage, the system that underlie each subdiscipline of language. This is purely linguistic. The second is what's so-called the status planning, which is concerned with the positions and the roles played by language. Language being the official language of a country, language of the capital, language for wider communication, language for as a subject, language of mass communication, language of digital learning, language of used on online, language used as business, language in multilingual area, multi-dialectical area. So these are the positions played by languages, dialects. And in language planning, dialects are languages because they are governed by rules, and also languages are standardized and written and transferred from generation to generation. The third aspect of language planning is language acquisition. That is how language is acquired. Who teach whom, teach what, teach when, teach where, and teach why. So these are the areas of language planning. And let me move to basic concepts in language planning. That is, language in general is envisioned as a right, that the people have the right to use any language, be it their native language, foreign language, second language, third language. It is our right to use that language. So it is no more thinking of language as being problematic or language being a challenge in front of learners. Second, language as a resource. Now we are starting looking at language as a resource like minerals, like agriculture, like economy. So it is an incoming source of enriching the general, what's so-called the gross income to the country. So this is why we are opening so many departments of English language, graduating the students in single major, double major, triple major, because we do believe in using language as a source of economy. And then language as a problem. This is an idea that is no longer exists. It is a problem by those who are problematic. But so let us do believe in these three components. Therefore, for us in language planning, we have two types of language planning. Language planning for developing countries, developing languages, this is called status planning, and language planning for fully developed countries and fully developed language, this is called corpus planning. Now, let me shed some light on language acquisition because it's related to how languages are taught. We have macro policy goals that are set up by the government, by the people, by people in the parliament, upper house, lower house. And we have also macro goals. What are the goals behind teaching languages, foreign language, second language, third language? And let me just give you an idea from my experience at Yarmouk University. We have English language as a department. We have a department for teaching Hebrew, and I am honored that this program was initiated in my time when I was a vice dean in 1989. At the eve of the peace treaty with Israel, we realized the significance of having a department of Hebrew for many purposes. We have Turkish language, we have Persian language, we have Chinese language. Those are taught at Yarmouk University. In Hashemite University, we start of thinking having the same thing transferred to, and the same thing is applicable to language centers in Jordan and also the Department of English Language, and to all those who believe in the power implied in the use of language. Then we talk about micro implementation goals. That is the policies adopted to be at university level, at department level, at school level. And also we have micro goals that we teach languages by goals. What are the mission and the visions that are envisioned in teaching any foreign language? And those policies should be known and identified by professors, by instructors, by teacher to the student. That is, any course taught at school level or university level, we must identify why these courses are taught, what are the benefits, the fringe benefits, the material benefits, the financial benefits behind teaching any foreign language or native language. And then we talk about the micro implementation, that how policies are put into action, in establishing the programs, the BA program, the MA program, the PhD program. And then and again, when you talk about language, you talk about culture. This is why I'm joining both language and culture. That is, language is the carrier of culture. And in culture, we talk about two aspects of culture: emic culture and etic culture. Emic is derived from phonemic and etic from phonetic. That is the differences between cultures that can be presented through languages, and the similarities between culture also that can be presented by language. So language cannot be seen out of culture and context. So this is why we should emphasize the teaching of a language within its culture and how the culture will enrich the environment of learning a foreign or a second language. Now, having these points in mind, and let me go down to the process of acquiring a language. In psycholinguistics, we talk about language acquisition device, and we do believe that the brain is divided into two hemispheres, the right hemisphere and the left hemisphere. Language acquisition device is located in the left hemisphere of the brain, and this LAD, which is summarized, language acquisition device, is divided into three main compartments. The first one is called filter, the second is called organizer, the third is called monitor. The filter is responsible for psychological readiness for learners who acquire any foreign language. The organizer is held responsible for enabling students to know, to understand, to analyze, to evaluate, and then to conclude. And the third one, which is the monitor, is which is unconscious. It is the self-guide in learning a foreign language. Now, plus this, these are called internal factors in learning any language. We have external factors. That is the age of the learner. The second, the role of L1 in acquiring L2. And then we talk about the personality of learners. We talk about who is going to study or to learn a foreign language. There are certain characteristics for those who are going to acquire any foreign language: being being open-minded, being sociable, being extrovert, being willing to interact with the people, having a liberal mind, which is open-minded. So the interaction between the internal factors and the external factors, supported by language planning, that is planning the use of language in four terms. That is, number one, promoting foreign languages. That is, who is going to adopt these foreign language? Adopt by whom? Why? How? When? Where? And this is part of what's so-called language management, the management of teaching foreign languages. Therefore, those who are going to be held responsible for teaching foreign languages must be, number one, distinguished and empowered, and they play role models. That is, my own feeling that I myself have the feeling I am born to be a gifted teacher. I feel that I am born just for teacher, not for being administrator. So priority is given to teaching. Then we talk about decision making. That is, who decide upon the cultural capsules embedded in the curriculum used for teaching a foreign, a second, a third, whatever the case. And then we talk about marketing. Who is going to market those language? That is, good teachers, good language planners are held responsible. And in marketing, we summarize this in the 5 components of marketing. That is the right product. By product, I mean the curriculum used in teaching or learning or even in translation. And second, by the right promotion. And third, by the right price, right place, right people. These are the best component of marketing. And then we talk about if we are using the power, that is politics, the influential in using and promoting languages. And in language teaching and learning, I am talking about a win-win situation. Everybody is winning in learning a foreign language. There are certain misconceptions among people that the language of enemy is become a language which people don't want to study. And I'm against this. Languages in linguistics are equal. Languages are carrier of culture. Languages are vehicle into which you can look into the windows of others. Therefore, a priority must be given for teaching all these languages, and we should distinguish between the people and the language of people. If certain learners develop certain enmity toward people, this will be reflected negatively on learning any foreign language. So having these premises or assumptions in language planning, what is the role of language planning? Language planning actually is designed to promote languages in general, to be part of the policy adopted in the Ministry of Higher Education and Ministry of Education at all levels. The country as a whole, represented by the Ministry of Higher Education, represented by the universities, must adopt the teaching of languages. And we do experience this in Jordan, bringing people from the state to study Arabic language. I myself have invited so many people from Bridgewater University or from other university at my home. They mix with my people, with my children, with my wife, with my sons and daughters. They stayed for hours and sometimes they spent nights with us. So we exchange ideas. They become better ambassadors to me, to Jordan, to my university. And I still remember the example of the mother of Professor Laura. She was with her and she was collecting items from antiquities, cultural issues in Jordan, carried with her in the bag. And when she went to the state, she started talking about Jordan as if she is the cultural attaché, which is practicing the real genuine role played by her in Jordan. So language planning is urging what's so-called teaching, embodying the language into its culture. That is, and in this case, I'm telling an anecdote happened to me when I was attending a conference in Syria a long time ago in 2010. There was a conference held at Damascus University, and one of the keynote speaker at that time, she was talking about ESP. And then she said to us, you know what does ESP stand for? And then immediately the Arab people said, well, English for specific purposes. And then she responded in a way which insulted us at that time. She said, no, it is English for stupid people. And we get angry at that time. And because there is a minimum of cultural loading embedded in this program, I was attending the conference, I got angry and I said to her, no, in Jordan, it is English for sexual purposes. And then she got angry at me at that time, said, we should not embody the languages with the tone of colonialism. We're no longer talking about what's so-called linguistic imperialism, superiority, inferiority of languages, the dominance of Anglophone, Francophone. We're looking at a global message that is languages all over the world are important. Languages must be promoted, must be adopted by universities, which are the cradle of teaching and spreading not only light, but also science, culture, tradition to all people. our policy when we are putting the strategic plan at universities, we are focusing on bringing students from foreign countries, from countries that, for example, having relationship with Jordan, the Anglophone or American phone or Chinophone, if you like, or Arab phone, bring them to, I beg your pardon? Bringing those people to develop a common understanding.
Dr. Fawwaz, you're being muted.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fine now?
So yeah, so go back to what you have said earlier, please.
Yeah, sorry, I'm sorry. I'm saying that in language planning at university level, at national level, it should be the program designed to bring the people together. I still remember Professor Lindsay when she spent 2 years at Yarmouk University, and she played a very wonderful role in teaching the student, visiting all areas in Jordan at families, mixing with the students, invited by families, talking about, and now I think she's in the state and she is more Jordanian than Jordanian themselves. And this is the kind of objectives and hope that I pin on people who are coming to be teachers of our language, French language, Spanish language, Chinese, even Russian, all languages. And this is the new vision of looking at languages being windows, vehicles, especially in after post COVID era, that we need to look for platforms for education. These platforms are available in different languages. Students can go back to YouTube, to these platforms. In different universities, they can access these platforms in different disciplines, in English, in linguistics, in economy, in education, in everywhere. So I think it is time that people in the field of languages, language planners, policymakers should focus on the objectives of adopting languages for these wonderful objectives that convey culture, bringing people together, uniting people, spreading the word of peace everywhere, and languages through the ability to express number one, ideas, opinion, attitudes, and also closing these ideas together. I don't want to take much of your time. I will leave some time for discussion. If this is okay, I will stop here and they'll be waiting for your question. Thank you very much for listening. And I do appreciate Professor Jabbar giving me the chance to communicate with you in this after COVID era. Thank you very much indeed. And my warmest greeting to everybody of you.
Thank you, Professor Fawwaz Abdelhak, President of the Hashemite University. I just would like you to, if possible, to elaborate on the interconnectivity between the interior and external factors and how that have an impact, direct impact on the teaching and learning.
Thank you.
Because as you said, language is the carrier by itself as a tool or a medium of, for instruction or otherwise for communication. However, really the real carriers are the people themselves, as you mentioned that. So how these factors are playing tremendously.
Well, I still remember your talk at Yarmouk University. We talk about interconnectivity. You and your friend did that at Yarmouk University. In language acquisition, we have external factors represented by number one, matching the personality of a student with the personality of teachers. And I did still remember a PhD carried by my daughter, Dr. Thana. She did an excellent dissertation on matching the personality of a student with the personality of teachers. The closer the connectivity, the better the achievement of a student. That is, the personality of a student must be represented by the personality of teachers. The close the personalities between teachers and students, the better the teaching learning process will be. And this actually requires that teachers should focus on the characteristics of persons, personality, open-minded personality, introvert, extrovert, willing, positive, negative, isolated, depressed. So this is very important. For language planners and for language learners, we should focus on understanding the personality of learner before starting teaching any language. This is the first important issue. So this is from a social perspective. Because when we were kids, we were always being threatened by foreign language teaching. They said that foreign languages are difficult, not easy to acquire. Arabic is the most difficult language. English is not teachable or learnable. So these previous ideas, these attitude that exists before starting any program will affect negatively learning a foreign language. The second, which is the influence of L1 and L2. That is, we have so much in common, and our friends in linguistics know that we have language universals. We have so much in common between English, Arabic, German, French, Deutsch, because at linguistic level, at cultural level, at discursive level, when we talk about discourse, that is the representation of ideas by language in different styles, by different people in different occasions. The basic cornerstones of discourse are common by all languages. The strategies of persuasive discourse are common by all languages. So, and we also, I say this in Arabic, خياركم في العربية خياركم في الإنجليزية. Those who are at best in Arabic are expected to be at best in English. And those who are at best in English are expected to be at best in Spanish and French, and because of this issue which is acknowledged universally. That is language universals, that element shared by all languages. And it is our role as linguists to identify and to pinpoint these similarities, these common issues between languages. And then we talk about the age. In psycholinguistics, we talk about the critical age hypothesis. That is the best age for learning any language is the age of 6. Now, before puberty, because this is the age where students are expected to acquire a native-like, developing a native-like fluency in any foreign language. And then we talk about the influence of the environment. And by environment, I mean the physical, natural environment, or what is called the linguistic landscaping, الشارع اللغوي in Arabic, المشهد اللغوي. Wherever you go in Jordan, ads are set in English, advertisements are set in English, road signs are set in English. If you go to the shopping market, signs of shops, wherever you go, these are written in foreign languages. And the linguistic environment, that is, I call it in language planning, the socio-linguistic socialization, التنشئة اللغوية الاجتماعية. That is, if you are fortunate by having well-educated, well-fasih mom and dad who can practice languages, whatever the case is, I think this is an excellent situation for encouraging the student to learn any foreign language. And then we talk about the internal component, that is the psychological readiness. How ready are you psychologically, socially, educationally, culturally? How the threshold عتبة الإحساس of learning any foreign language is alerted, is functional, is effective to start learning any language. And then the organization, the digesting of knowledge embedded in language, starting from knowledge, and then you move to comprehension, then to analysis, then to synthesis, then evaluating of the material of ideas embodied in language, and then your ability to conclude in any foreign language. And then the third component, which is called the monitor, the self-guiding process of learning any language. The interaction between the internal and external factor will strengthen the power of learning, acquiring a language. And for me, learning, acquiring are used interchangeably. Is that okay, Professor Jabbar?
Well said, well said. So now, please, if you would like to ask a question, go ahead and ask a question. If you want to put it in the chat, we'll be happy to read that for you on your behalf.
Professor Dr. Jabbar.
Yes, sir.
Professor Dr. Mehdi Falih Al-Ghazali, Head of Department of Translation, Al-Mustansiriya University, Baghdad.
You are most welcome. Thank you so much for joining. Go ahead.
Best greetings to Professor Fawwaz. I have a question, in fact. We have what we call language
Please speak up.
centrality.
Speak up, please, Dr. Mahdi, Professor Mahdi.
We have what we call
Raise your
language
voice.
centrality as part of language planning. And since he is an expert on language planning, language centrality would lead to the deprivation of linguistic rights of minorities in a country. How do we minimize, or how does language planning minimize the impact of language centrality for those people?
Can you define centrality, please, Dr. Mahdi Al-Ghazali? What do you mean by centrality?
Language centrality means that, for instance, in Iran, in Turkey, we find Persian and Turkish are the official formal languages where other language minorities are not possible to use. This is language centrality.
Well, thank you. Let me give you a situation in Jordan. We have Arabic language, the official language, but we have minorities in Jordan. We have Circassian, we have Druze, we have Chechenian. I think in language planning, these minorities should be given the right to practice their own minority language. Nothing harm whatsoever in using this minority. It's not going to be a source of a threat for the national language use or the standard language.
Yes.
Having into consideration the so much commonality between languages, and second, you find yourself closer, or you find yourself in the language that you are born in. If I'm a Bedouin, I'm close to Bedouin dialect. If I'm living in an urban, I can use at home my urban dialect. If I'm a rural, I can use my rural. If I'm Chechenian or Circassian, I can use my Circassian. There is a misconception among people that this minority language will marginalize the standard language. In language planning, I am against this point of view. This is a misconception here.
Yes, Professor, we find in Turkey or in Iran, Arab people, they are not allowed to use Arabic. Kurdish people are not allowed to use...
Brother, this is a political decision. But in reality, this is I call it linguistic oppression. اضطهاد لغوي.
So Dr. Mahdi, I think there are two points here. Your question is very important. I think Dr. Fawwaz already answered that. Educators, they have one mission and one mission only, is to connect with their students and the learners. You want to have your own shield and your own framework. The framework, so if you engage our mind with the outside and the government, what the government said, we're not going to do anything. Trust me. This is, in the United States, as you know, we don't have official language. English in the United States is not an official language. It's a business language. But we adopted English. We adopted other languages. That's why in Bridgewater State University, we teach a lot of, including Arabic. And by the way, even now we started last year to teach Hebrew. We are moving to Turkish. You know, you have the seven languages in the United States. This is actually the new face for the global world. And so we need to make sure that as educators, this is my humble mission, request, forget about politics. Just leave them alone. Just work and they will appreciate your work. Go ahead, Dr. Fawwaz.
Yeah, in the state, there is the one language, one nation. But if you look into CNN, so many people from Pakistan, from India, from Arab world are in CNN. Professor Jabbar is a case in point. He's Iraqi, he's using Iraqi dialect at home, but he's a professor of a very well-known professor and the milestone at this university. They never say any single word in Bridge State University. He's Iraqi, he's a foreigner, therefore he should not work in education. So I think this is something wrong with the politician. And this is as defined by politics, is a dirty game. They are looking for influential, and I think language planning is meant to damage, to break the borders between languages.
Dr. Laura, do you want to read the last question? There's a question there, the personal tailored connection.
Yeah.
Yes, I can do that.
Yes.
The text says the personal tailored connection between students and educators is important at the university level. Can extracurricular activities be used to enhance such connections?
Yes, and I'll use you as an example, Professor Lera. You were brought to Yarmouk University to teach. You are in philosophy, but you were a successful model in teaching students at the Faculty of Information and Mass Media English. Their exposure to the language and the courses adopted by you left a great impact on them, because not only based on your educational background, being a philosopher, a graduate from Wisconsin-Madison, in mass communication, in discourse, the culture of American English, being an American itself, and so close. You are a model of simplicity and complexity at the same time. You bridge the gap, bringing examples of American expressions used by Americans in the field of mass communication. People at the mass communication faculty are still talking about your role played 2-3 semesters ago.
Shukran.
Afwan.
Okay, any other question?
May I have a question?
Yes, please, Professor Omar,
Professor
welcome.
Omar Fajawi is a linguist and a man of literature, and currently he is the president or of library at Jordan at Hashemite University.
Most welcome.
Thank you, my president. Thank you so much. This is Omar Al-Fajawi, professor of Arabic language, and my precise specialization is pre-Islamic literature. And I would like to convey my deep thanks to my professor and my president, Professor Fawwaz Abdul Haq Zboon, who has appointed me as a director of the main library.
No, you deserve it. Thank you.
Thank you so much in the Hashemite University. I'm very pleased, really, to listen to this kind and generous lecture. And Professor Fawwaz Abdul Haq, this is a truth that he is a high-level professor, and really I have learned many things in such this lecture. But please, this is an interruption, or this is a question. I'm asking about Arabic and English. What do you say, Professor Fawwaz Abdul Haq, to those who are specialists in Arabic language and they are speaking that Arabic language? And this is my field, you know. Yeah. Arabic language is a sacred language, and you have to make a big bridge and big gap between Arabic and English, and they make dams between Arabic and English is the second language. I think, in my opinion, this is a hatred discourse, in my opinion, and I need to listen to your opinion. What we have to say to those who are specialists in Arabic language, and they are avoiding us, not to bridge the gap, but to make a big gap between these two languages. In your opinion, especially in your plan, in your specialization in planning in language. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor Omar. I think this is one of the misconceptions, the idea of being sacred. Sacred, when you talk about holy text, Holy Quran, if you talk about the Quran itself, the language through which the Quran was conveyed, this is not sacred, Yahi. And this is one of the big issues that we encounter among those who claim that they are Arabic guardians, Hurras al-Arabi. I think they are destroying, devastating Arabic by having this mission. And you are one of the examples that I always mention. You were trained in Harvard and Oxford, and you are the one who taught this PhD course intersecting with linguistics, with Arabic linguistics, with history, with anthropology, with mass media, with antiquity, with all disciplines. And Thank God that you were able to publish a book among these articles given to your
Thank
PhD
you.
student.
Thank
So
you.
your case is an excellent case in point where Arabic language can be intersected with all disciplines. So, but having in mind sacred, untouchable, nobody is going to touch it. This is a threat by itself to the status of Arabic language. And this also carries with it that Arabic is the most difficult language to be taught. Case endings, Arab, etc., etc. I think it's time we should put Arabic into its linguistic arena, linguistic landscaping, and discover the most common element. And this can be taught through the contrastive linguistic contrastive discourse analysis and comparing and contrasting. And I still remember a statement said by Michael Halliday. I was attending a conference in Australia, and he said the best text for teaching coherence and cohesion is the Quran. This is a statement said by a famous, the godfather of discourse analysis. And you remember his book, Cohesion and Coherence in English, he and Ruqayya Hassan. That guy is giving the Quran as an excellent textbook for teaching the strategies of cohesive and coherent in languages. So I think it's your role as a specialist of Arabic language in the Department of Arabic Language, and also our role in linguistics, in English linguistics and otherwise, to extend, to destroy the borders between these departments. And I enjoy the course that you offered by inviting me to give a talk to people in the Arabic language. And I think your example must be imitated everywhere.
Appreciate. This is by your support. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Professor Jabbar is muted. Professor Jabbar is muted.
Yes. Thank you, Dr.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Good evening to everyone. And thank you so much for this valuable and precious talk on language and culture. I have one point I would like to, let us say, talk about with regard to the point that some people, they are reluctant to, let us say, to learn, for example, the English language from the point of, let's say, due to a number of reasons. And one of these reasons, maybe attribute to that the learning a new language, they may, let's say, have, let's say, some influence on their culture and habits. So how, this issue, how is this issue related, for example, to the language planning, and how can this issue, let's say, be resolved? So can you please, Professor Fawwaz?
Thank you, Dr. Al-Zabi. And I'll refer you to a book written by Robert Phillips, and his book is entitled Linguistic Imperialism, الإمبريالية اللغوية. هذا موضوع مع دكتورة فيفيان شبيري. We always talk about this. There are three types of language planning. Colonial language planning, which means the imposition of a foreign language, be it English or French, on the colonized country. And here we are asking, Jordan was under the British mandate, they were required to study English. Syria and Lebanon were under the French mandate or colonialization, they must study only French language. But if you take into consideration, I call it Islamic language planning, التخطيط اللغوي والعربي الإسلامي. We have never ever seen that Arabic language was imposed by force in people. People were willingly coming to adopt, to start learning Arabic by themselves, not by force, not by sword. And I think this is the kind of learning we are after, inviting others to enjoy the wealth and the health of learning Arabic, English, French, even barbarian language, even any language is a source of health and wealth by people. So if I would like to look at language planning from these three angles, the number one, something which is done purposefully by colonial power, the case of English and French. Second, the choice of foreign languages by the people in authority. That, for example, the people in authority, the legislative body in the country decide that we should not only adopt English, French, but also Hebrew. So this is a nationalist movement. And the third, that people in the business, people in the field of business, the global, the international, those who would like to establish trade, economy, they are willing to, now there is a tendency in Jordan to start learning Chinese language. Most of the Jordanian, most of the people in MENA are going to China. Therefore, they start acquiring and teaching China and Chinese language and Japanese language because they are heading toward the East. So I think this is the right vision of language policy. If you have certain concerns in trade, in economy, and whatever the case, I think you can choose the language that will serve your purpose.
That's right. So there is, actually, Taha has his hand, but I want to just make this comment. We now trying to actually even adapt to new terminologies. For example, we don't say this is male language and sub-language or second language. Even the second language is not the right word. This is the other language.
I agree with you.
Speak
Thank
other
you.
language. So we're trying to clarify that. Secondly,
international language. Thank you.
We don't say subculture. We don't believe in subculture. Culture is culture. But there is a mainstream culture, I mean the majority, but there is a culture that actually very important to that culture to enrich it and enhance it and then take away so many things from that culture. So we need to really rethink our linguistic words in order to connect all of us. That's what Dr. Fawwaz.
Professor Jabbar, thank you, because you are hitting a very important. I still remember when I was in the state, the department who was taking care of students coming from outside the state, first they were called strange student department. Then they changed from stage into foreign department student. And then third to international student. International is much better than call it strange or foreign. I do agree with you strongly. We talk about international languages, auxiliary languages that help you to develop the country, the person, university, education, in different aspects, in different angles.
That's
I
right.
do agree with you.
Thank you so much. Dr. Taha, please go ahead and shoot your, either post it or you can say anything. Go ahead. Taha. Dr. Taha.
Hello, you hear me?
Go ahead, yes, sir.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
Thank you, sir, so much. Thank you, Professor Fawwaz. I'm gonna, I have one question, how we can protect our Arabic language.
Most welcome, the most educated person in our family and our tribe. Thank you very much for being present with us. Shukran ya Dr. Taha al-Habib.
Thank you so much, Dr. Fawwaz. Professor Fawwaz, it's يعني أنا بشعر حالي صغير أمام علمك. إلا إنه my question, it's like, there is a street language in United States and there is a business language, and how we can protect our language, Arabic language. We have like, so many now, and we have like, everybody talks different, like our Bedouin, or you can go to Amman or something like that, or to Saudi Arabia, or anywhere. So the question, yes, sir.
Well, actually, I don't believe in protecting a language. Language is not so weak. This is something that lies in the person himself. I myself am coming from Bani Hassan. At home and with my Hassan tribe, I talk Bani Hassan dialect. At school, I use standard Arabic language or modern standard Arabic language. In international conferences, I shift to English language. So it is playing different roles in different occasions, in different times, with different people. So the language, as the theory put by the fittest for the survivor, no. It is we, the people. If we are strong, our language is strong. If we are weak, our language is going to be weakened. So it depends on us. At home, we are living, I'll give you an example. I'm living here at Nuaima since 1940. you're talking about 60, 80 years, but we're still using Bani Hassan dialect within the certain small circle in Nuaima. But when we mix with people from Nuaima, we use the rural dialect, and we don't feel ourselves that we are insulted or humiliated. So these are roles to be played. And you can play. And I can say to my father, انت صباحا وانت صباحا والله جمعة لي مرحبا يا ابوي كيف حالك يا حبيب قلبي شلونك يا ابوي. بحكيها بالعامية الأردنية المحكية. But حتى لو كان في ناس ضيوف outside, and I address my father, my mother in a language which is suitable to their understanding and mind. خاطبوا الناس على قدر عقولهم وأنزلوا الناس منازلهم. So we address people according to their mindset, what they understand, and أعتبرها من العجرفة اللغوية أنه أتحدث وأتشدق بالعربية الفصيحة أمام قوم هم من عامة الناس ولا لا يعرفون العربية الفصيحة. So shifting back and forth, these are competences that any speaker of a language must have. Your ability to shift from, and this is an example I said, محمد متولي شعراوي يا دكتور طه يفسر القرآن باللهجة المصرية العامية ويفهمها العامي ويفهمها الفصيح, and it is used everywhere. وما حد حكى لمحمد متولي شعراوي انك انت اضعفت اللغه العربيه بالحديث عن القران باللغه المصريه المحكيه. اذا متذكر شيخنا الشمالي اللي بالكرك.
English sir.
Okay. We have a guy who is from Karak, and he used to address people in Karaki Arabic. They understand him comprehensively, with joy, with joking. They got the idea, though the idea is set in colloquial Karaki Arabic. So I think we are talking about who speak to whom, what, when, where, why. It's not a matter of having standard Arabic untouchable. We should always use Al-Arabiyyah al-Fasiha, standard Arabic. So what I'm saying, competences in languages by different people in different occasions.
Yes, cultural competencies and language competencies. I have two gentlemen, Dr. Wajih, then Dr. Hussein. I have 3 minutes. I want to be mindful of your time. Go ahead,
Thank you so
Wajih,
much.
please.
Thank you so much.
شكرا.
Right. Thank you very much, Professor Jabbar, and my dear friend, Professor Fawwaz. We've been friends for almost 30 years now, I think.
Yes.
At least 30 years. I have always noticed that Dr. Fawwaz is a peacemaker. He's a linguistic peacemaker. I mean, some linguists, unfortunately, tend to create some sort of enmity among languages. And I think this simply stems from the fact that the notion of language and that of dialect are yet to be defined in a watertight way. Unfortunately, I mean, we are yet, I mean, as linguists, we are yet to draw a distinction between a language and a dialect. What was a dialect? What was a dialect? I mean, like French, it was a dialect of Latin, which developed into a fully fledged language. And of course, it developed from Parisian dialect, as we all know. So I wonder, how far does the definition of language reflect on language or linguistic unity? Shall we speak of 7,000 languages today, or simply 7,000 dialects? This is one point, Professor Fawwaz. The other is regarding the very methodology of language classification, language family classification.
Yeah.
Again, unfortunately, when some Western linguists excluded Semitic languages from the corpus of language family classification, I think that sort of attitude did much harm to linguistic unity.
Yeah.
I mean, why should families like Semitic, for instance, of which Arabic is one, Hebrew is one, why should they be excluded? And why should Skeet's etymological dictionary be based only on Indo-European family of languages, when hundreds and thousands of roots can easily be traced to Semitic? I think our methodology of research, Professor Fawwaz, needs to be amended in order to be more objective and in order to lead to more global linguistic peace. That's my question, please. So regarding the notion of language and dialect.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Waji. So this actually invites one second, Mr. President. Dr. Waji, I just want to make sure that when I contact you, please add your email in the chat. So I want to make sure that I will bring you to another symposium for this. This is really, you raised a very important critical points, and I think we need to do, because we are Bridgewater State University now, we are talking about translation, interpretation, language, and bridging culture. This is what we do. This is what we have. So I invite you to just bear with us, and then we'll probably have another discussion for this, because what you raise is very important to me and is well noted. Dr. Hussein, please.
Yes. Thank you, Professor Jabbar, and thank you, Professor Fawwaz. Indeed, it is very informative, very interesting, I would say, and raised many questions in mind. But I want to take you to the practical side, which has to do with the role of language planning, that it may play on how much culture should be incorporated into language teaching, keeping in mind the diverse opinions, whether we should teach skim language, low-fat language, or full-fat language. Still debating over this issue, and although, you know, the social media is available, accessible to everybody nowadays. Thank you.
Well, I think language is inseparable from culture. I think we should have bits and pieces of what you have mentioned. Since we are preparing a global citizen, should be prepared with a global language, a global culture. So he should bear part of his own local culture, and then international culture, and the culture of the language, the target language. Because you cannot teach language being inseparable from its own culture. Otherwise, you will come with different ideas, different ideology, and different terms. And you know, the linguistic, cognitive, psycholinguistic dimension of terms. So I do agree with you. I am the head of the committee for English language teaching committee at school level. We encounter this, but we try to strike a balance between what is local, what's a global, what is international. I do agree with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Fawwaz, any closing remarks before I bring to the floor?
Well, and I would like to thank you, Professor Jabbar, and I pray for God to keep you well, safe and sound, for always bringing the continent together, not the languages, and being a dynamic educationist, a dynamic scholar, dynamic. And for those who do not, Jabbar used to be a professor at Yarmouk University. Jabbar is everywhere, okay? And second, thank you for Bridgewater State University, always doing us a favor. You do not limit what you have in the state, but you spread your benefits to your neighbors, to your humanity, in Iraq, in Jordan, in Lebanon, everywhere. So, and this webinar is a case in point that will testify your goodness and your university also participation in building bridges, not breaking bridges. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I know I had to leave Dr. Vivian and Yazid. If you, please, just in 30 seconds, commercial time. what
This
you
is
say?
a professor of antiquity in Lebanon. She's a very active professor in the field of antiquity. Thank you, Professor.
Just go ahead,
Vivian.
just in 30 seconds, please. If you have more question, you put it in the
Just
post.
for
Yeah.
thank Dr. Abdul Haq, and I would like to thank you for this valuable lecture. And I think you have.
You can speak in French, Dr. Vivian, not in English.
In Arabic is better.
Okay, fine,
just for thank you. No time now to answer my question, but every time we are in conversation with Dr. Abdul Haq, and I thank you. Just
Thank
that.
you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Vian. Dr. Yazid, please, just in 30 seconds.
Hello, this is Yazid. First and foremost, I would love to thank every and each one of the great attendees for inviting us to this eminent assembly. I just wanted to take on my remark, which is the vast majority of social media users tend mainly to conceptualize semiotics and as means of expressing their opinions and remarks freely and referring to what they feel about anything they come across in order to avoid being trapped by the systematic algorithm boundaries on social media platform. So ultimately, the more boundaries are imposed, the more linguistically creative they will be. So from a semantic point of standpoint, what's the role of our cognition in reshaping the speaker's linguistic creativity?
Okay, that's a good. We'll answer this question later, probably, because time is running against us now, and usually we go by time. I just would like you, before I bring Dr. Laura to say some closing remarks, please activate your camera, because we would like to have a picture. So please put your camera on. If you don't mind, this is just for us as a family. I will be speaking about the family. So I want to make sure that we take a nice picture. Okay, you ready, guys?
Yes.
All
Could
right.
you give me
Yes.
1 second, Dr. Jabbar?
Yes, of course.
أهلا وسهلا دكتور طارق حبيب قلبي أبو
Good evening.
ناصر.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I would
Lovely
like to
evening.
thank you very much,
Okay,
Dr.
so
Fawwaz.
we reach at a point 68
But
people.
you have
Now we
missed
have
Bani
50.
Yassinic language, Dr. Fawwaz.
Okay.
So we are
Yes.
partners with that.
Picture time. And I'm going to go to page 2. And page 2. And so you're going to see your picture with Sasha, the PhD student, Sasha, my friend, dear friend, Sasha Link. She is waving. She is the best writer on our campus. And she's
Thank
a
you.
journalist and educator. Now, Dr. Laura, please, your closing remarks.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Fawwaz, for giving us this excellent lecture. I always learn so much from your talks. I try to see all of them that I'm invited to. You have brought to us your intelligence, your warmth, your compassion, and the connection between language and humanity, which of course is my favorite part of all of this. Thank you again for inviting all of the participants. We have had many participants in this talk, more than we usually do. So that that speaks to Fawwaz's great reach across the world of language. Thank you again to Dr. Jabbar, Al-Obaidi. You have created an environment for this to happen in an excellent way. Thank you very much. So I am very grateful. Shukran to all of the participants. Shukran, Dr. Fawwaz. Shukran to all of my friends that I have been able to see on the camera. Thank you.